When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And so here we are taking a road trip, a very unplanned, unscheduled road trip, to head back to our old stomping grounds near St. Louis, Missouri. My husband is originally from a little town close to St. Louis, Missouri, and we used to live there about 15 years ago. We do try to make it back home, but this definitely was not a planned trip. We quickly decided to make it a little educational road trip and make a few stops along the way to really kind of get the kids excited about some of the history of our country. It's so big, and we don't get to travel as much as we'd like to. And so when we get an opportunity, I usually try to do some research and find some areas that we can stop along the way to continue our education. And when a very close family friend of ours had a death in the family, we decided that this would be a perfect opportunity to go home, support our good friend, and also make it educational. So come along with us as we show you a national park called the George Washington Carver National Museum. And this is in Joplin, Missouri. So it was about halfway between where we live in Texas and our destination close to St. Louis. And so we decided to take the morning and go check out the national park. We are big fans of the Junior Ranger program, and so we decided to let the kids participate in the Junior Ranger program at the George Washington Carver National Museum. So this is the road that you take to get to it. It's kind of a hidden gem, definitely tucked back a little ways, but it was very much well worth the visit. And we would 10 out of 10 recommend stopping in this area if you have a chance. So come along. I can't wait to show you what we got to do for about 3 to 4 hours at the George Washington Carver National Museum. Like I said before, this was a national park, and so we were able to participate in the free Junior Ranger program. It is free to, I believe, all ages. They do have two different programs, one for younger kids, ages 5 to 7, and then another program that is for 8 and older. So both of my kids did separate booklets, and they really enjoyed it. It definitely helped get our educational piece in. Sadly, we really didn't know much about George Washington Carver, but this definitely fixed that. We learned so much about this incredible, inspirational person. And we also picked a wonderful day. There was hardly anybody there. It was beautiful outside. The park has outdoor areas to visit, but also inside exhibits, which we did both of those things. And so I was just so impressed with this small little museum and how much it really had for us to do. Here is an exhibit that showed some of the early life of George Washington Carver. He had to move away from his original home and live about 8 miles away with a free black family that lived closer to the black school that he so desperately wanted to attend. And so this is the real bed and the real trunk that was very similar to what he would have kept his all of his belongings in. And on the table is the family Bible of the Watkins family, which is the lovely family that took him in and allowed him to stay in their house to attend the all-black school. George Washington Carver is typically a little blip in a textbook, and I didn't really know much about him. But I am very happy to say that that has changed through these exhibits. I had no idea the tragic beginning of George Washington Carver and how difficult his life was. He was born to a slave woman. He was actually stolen from the farm he had lived in and was eventually recovered. His mother, he had no idea where she was when she was taken from the farm by an outlaw group, and she was never found again. George Washington Carver also did not know his father, so he, throughout his life, was an orphan. And thankfully, the owners of George Washington Carver's mother decided to keep him and his brother and raise them. And he was raised indoors, learning laundry skills and cooking and knitting and crocheting and a lot of household skills, because when he was brought back from being stolen, he had such a terrible case of whooping cough that he was really only suited to indoor life for a long time. However, he did love the outdoors. He had a secret little garden behind the little cabin that they had, and he would always just be outside playing in the woods, examining, looking, and observing. And he always had an affinity for plant life and animals and nature. And so we were able to see some of the original artifacts that were a part of his life. Here we are participating in the Junior Ranger program. Elliot, who is 7, he worked on the younger children's program. And Owen, who is 11, got to do the older program, which both of them were very, very good. And we got a lot of information out of them. It really helped us to go through a lot of the exhibits and look at all of the wonderful pieces of information. And that's what we're doing here. We get to look at a lot of the different artifacts that they had and learn about a lot of his early years living in the wilderness of Missouri.
And then a scientist. For he spent his first year at Simpson College majoring in art, but changed his mind like all college students do. But after they finished, chose another major. And it was
Man.
Can you look for an A and an R and a T right close together?
A.
Oh,
A.
okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few minutes to drive on track.
Can you circle it? Art.
I'm gonna go with Dad.
All right.
Ooh, are we gonna watch a movie?
Yeah. And then we're also going to work, I think, Owen, you have a crossword puzzle you can do while you're waiting. And Ellie, you and I will do a crossword puzzle. After we were able to watch about a 25 or 30-minute video documenting his entire life from when he was born to when he was a professor at the Tuskegee University in Alabama, we were able to go to an upstairs portion of the exhibits. And like all good museums, this had a wonderful amount of hands-on activity for busy little kids. And here on this floor, we were able to really get a good idea of his love of nature and the science behind it, his studies that he was able to complete. And it had a wonderful example of a one-room schoolhouse that he would have learned in when he was little at the all-black school. And then it also had a great example of what a science classroom would have looked like when he was teaching. And you were able to get on benches and use microscopes and use different slides and look and touch and see and do. And it was wonderful for our kids during our road trip to get out of the van, get moving, do some discoveries, touch things, move things, get involved in things. And it definitely helped the rest of our trip go a lot smoother. These particular exhibits focused on his adult life. George Washington Carver was a huge advocate of educating others, especially black farmers who might have had some land and were trying to work the soil. They didn't have a whole lot of education in that time, and so He was a proponent of the Jessup wagon, which was a mobile educational wagon that would go and teach farmers best practices for creating a successful farm. And so that was really interesting to learn about. He was an educator through and through. He cared about helping his people learn about the land and nature and how to farm. He also was a speaker. He was able to overcome time and time again the prejudices of being black, of not being taken seriously, not being given opportunities for education with other people who were not black. And that was just tragic to learn that he was such an amazing mind, and yet that wasn't good enough. It mattered what color his skin was. And so he finally was able to get his education, rise above the prejudices and the challenges of his time, and become educated. He did have a higher degree in, he originally wanted to do art, but one of the professors was concerned that he wouldn't really be able to make a living as a black artist. So she suggested that he try science because he was so interested in nature and flowers and plants. And so he followed that advice and enrolled in agriculture, and it was really the opening of the rest of his career. He eventually got his master's degree, and then he was a teacher professor for the Tuskegee University. So a very amazing life. I couldn't even imagine having to deal with the challenges and adversities that he faced, but it was an amazing, inspirational day to learn about it. So this is the cabin, the actual cabin area where George Washington Carver was born. It was a slave cabin. It was a very small cabin. I would say maybe 10 by 10. And this is just to mark where he was born, where his mother, who was purchased as a slave for $700, where she gave birth to him. And it's just very, I would say, just very humbling to be in the same space where this really, like, this icon was able to get his start in life. And that is what makes history so tangible, so interesting, so real. And it is probably, these trips are probably why my children will say that their favorite subject in school is history. We also were able to take a trail to the house of Moses Carver and his wife. This house was built later. George Washington Carver was not raised in this house, but he did come to visit years later when he was grown. He would come back and visit occasionally, and he was able to visit them in their house. We are taking just a small little walk. I think it was probably just a little over a mile in total for this whole trail, but it takes you through some of the land, and you could imagine what a young, intelligent, curious boy might feel and observe and see in these woods. And I could see how you could be inspired to go out and learn about nature when you have such beauty here. And this is where, like, he used to go play in the woods. They didn't have toys. They would go play in the woods and discover nature and look at bugs and watch animals.
Cardinal!
Yeah.
I saw a cardinal.
Oh yeah, cardinals are around.
I don't usually say nature is beautiful, but this is...
It is beautiful. Imagine if it was actually, this is in the winter time when there's no leaves, but I'm sure it would be really pretty in the summer and the spring.
It's beautiful right now.
Yeah, it is. You're hearing the same kind of animals that he would have heard. What are you listening for, huh?
Is that a raccoon? Something. No, they don't come out at night.
Yeah, they're probably sleeping. They're nocturnal.
But maybe something, sure. You must leave what you find.
That's true. Leave no trace. Leave no
I don't
trace.
like that saying.
It is true.
You really have to leave trace. I mean, leave no trace.
Well, we want to make sure that it's preserved for other people who want to come in.
Slow down, Sonic.
So after a short walk, we're able to come to the newer house that was built on the property after George Washington Carver had grown up and moved out. But it's still really an interesting time to take a look at what houses looked like back then. It has a little bit of museum exhibits inside, but it just really gives you this sense of the land and the area that he would have been around and seen. And we talked about why it was important that settlers at this time settle around water and clear streams. And we really did enjoy checking out this area. This stream was the clearest stream I had ever seen that was fresh water. I mean, I'm not talking like Caribbean Ocean. This was a running stream with super clear water. They do say, please do not drink from the stream, of course, but you could just imagine being back in history in this time, gathering water for cooking, for watering your animals, for bathing, for everything that you needed had to come from the land. And it's just such a fun experience to imagine what it would have been like during this time. How fun.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool. After we toured the house, we enjoyed the outdoor area a little bit more. And upon leaving, we found this old tree that may have been here around the time that the Carvers were as well. And my kids wanted to climb it. We are so not used to having old trees around in our newer Texas home, and so they got to climb a tree. That's such a rite of passage for any kid. And we continued on, and we came to the family grave site, the cemetery there. This is where Susan and Moses Carver were buried, among other neighbors and friends. George Washington Carver is actually not buried here, but we continue on to his monument, where they have his voice reading one of his favorite poems by Edgar A. Guest called Equipment.
I can. Look them over the wise and great. They take their food from the commonplace. And similar knives and forks they use, with similar laces to tie their shoes. The world considers them brave and smart, but you've all they had when they made their start. You can triumph and come to steal. You can be great if you only will. You're well equipped for what fight you choose. You've legs and arms and a brain to use. And the man who has written great deeds to do began his life with no more than you. You are the handicap you must face. You are the one who must choose your place. You must say where you want to go, how much you will study the truth to know. God has equipped you for life, but he lets you to decide what you want to be. Courage must come from the soul within. The man must furnish the will to win. So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You are born with all that the great has had. With your equipment, they all began. Get hold of yourself and say, I can.
Having explored the outside and also the inside exhibits, we had completed the Junior Ranger program. Both Owen and Elliot signed the back of their booklets, and they were able to stamp a passport stamp for this particular park. So it's always really interesting to see the designs and get a little stamp on your booklet. We actually do have passports that we forgot at home, but we kept these little booklets and we'll be able to maybe transfer them into our passport somehow. But both of the boys got to stamp their booklet and complete their Junior Ranger requirements, and the ranger on duty at that time was nice enough to go ahead and swear the boys in. They said their oath, and then they got to collect their wooden Junior Ranger badges, which is always a fun little treat.
Being kind.
Being courageous.
Being courageous.
Being respectful of others.
Being respectful of others.
Congratulations.
Yay, good job. Very good. Hey.
Don't forget, you get badges too, so.
Yeah.
And with our Junior Ranger program complete, we decided to get back on the road. Coming up are some videos showing some of the fun, exciting things we were able to do that were also educational in St. Louis. Follow us for more.